Have you ever wondered where it all began? Not just your family photos or that selfie you took this morning, but the very first photograph ever taken. To find the answer, we have to travel back in time, to a quiet corner of France, in the summer of 1826. Imagine a soft sunrise, birds chirping, and a man who is about to accidentally change the world forever. This man was Joseph Nicéphore Niépce, a French inventor. He wasn't a professional artist or a historian trying to document his era. He was a tinkerer, a curious mind driven by a simple problem: how to copy drawings without using pen and ink. In his workshop, surrounded by strange bottles and contraptions that looked more like alchemy than science, he was experimenting with light. He called his process heliography, which literally means sun drawing. His idea was both ingenious and a little bit messy. He took a polished pewter plate, a thin sheet of metal, and coated it with a peculiar substance, bitumen of Judea. It's a naturally occurring asphalt, a type of tar that has a very interesting property. When exposed to bright sunlight for a long time, it hardens and becomes insoluble. In the darker areas, where light doesn't hit, the bitumen remains soft and can be washed away. Niépce thought he could place an engraving over the plate, expose it to light, and the sun would essentially etch a copy for him. He had some success with this, but then a much bigger idea sparked in his mind. What if he didn't just copy an existing image? What if he could capture a real image directly from life? To do this, he needed a device to focus the light. He used something called a camera obscura, which is Latin for dark room. It's a simple concept that artists had been using for centuries. Essentially, it's a dark box with a tiny hole or a lens on one side. Light from the outside passes through the hole and projects an inverted image onto the opposite wall. It was like a primitive projector. Niépce's genius was in thinking, what if I put my light-sensitive plate right where that projected image appears? So he took his small wooden camera obscura, carefully placed the bitumen-coated pewter plate inside, and pointed it out the window of his upstairs workroom at his country estate, known as La Grasse. He opened the aperture and then he waited and waited. This wasn't a quick snapshot like we're used to. The chemical process was incredibly slow. The sun had to be powerful enough to physically harden the asphalt. How long did he leave it there? Historians estimate the exposure lasted for at least 8 hours, and maybe even several days. Think about that for a moment. For 8 continuous hours, as the sun arced across the sky from morning to late afternoon, it blazed down onto the plate. The light slowly, painstakingly burned a permanent impression of the scene outside his window into the chemical coating. You can even see the strange effect of this long exposure in the final image. Sunlight appears to be shining on both sides of the building simultaneously, something that's impossible in a single moment. It's a photograph not of an instant but of a whole day passing. After this marathon exposure, Niépce took the plate back into his workshop. The moment of truth had arrived. He bathed the plate in a mixture of lavender oil and white petroleum. This solvent washed away all the soft, unexposed bitumen, leaving only the hardened parts that had been struck by the light. As the dark, oily liquid cleared, something magical appeared. A faint, ghostly image emerged from the metal. There it was. The view from his window. You can make out the slanted roof of a building, a pigeon house, a pear tree with a sliver of sky visible behind a barn. It's grainy, indistinct, and lacks all the sharpness and detail we expect from a photograph today. It's more like a dream or a faded memory than a crisp image. In fact, for years, many people had trouble even deciphering what they were looking at. It looks almost abstract, but it was real. He had done it. He had captured a slice of reality, a view of the rooftops and courtyards of his estate, and frozen it in time. He had made the world's first permanent photograph. This incredible artifact, titled View from the Window at La Grasse, is more than just a blurry picture. It's a monument to human curiosity. Niépce didn't fully grasp the magnitude of his invention at the time. His process was impractical. The image was difficult to see, and his efforts to gain recognition were largely unsuccessful in his lifetime. He later partnered with another inventor, Louis Daguerre, who would build upon his work to create the much more popular daguerreotype process. Sadly, Niépce died before photography truly took off, and for a long time his name was mostly forgotten, overshadowed by Daguerre. But his breakthrough was the critical first step. That single ghostly image created in a French farmhouse laid the foundation for everything that followed. Every photograph in history owes its existence to that 8-hour exposure. From the first portraits that allowed people to see the faces of loved ones long gone, to the war photography that brought the reality of conflict home. From the breathtaking images of distant galaxies captured by space telescopes to the billions of photos we share every single day on social media. It all traces back to one man, a pewter plate, some asphalt, and a whole lot of patience. Today, we live in a world saturated with images. We can capture a moment in a fraction of a second with the phone in our pocket. We take photography for granted. But it's worth remembering that it all started with a quiet, persistent experiment. It began not with a desire to create art, but with a scientific puzzle. It proves that sometimes the most world-changing innovations don't come from a flash of genius, but from the slow, steady work of someone who simply asks, "What if?" and has the patience to wait for the answer. That one grainy image isn't just the first photograph. It's a timeless symbol of human ingenuity and our endless desire to hold on to the fleeting moments of our lives. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to the very beginning of photography. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories about the incredible history behind our world. See you in the next video.